Have you ever had your entire life change with a single question you never saw coming? Today, I'm going to tell you the extraordinary true story of Emma Clark, a dedicated assistant who thought she was marrying her broke boss out of pity, only to discover he was one of the wealthiest men in the world, and that what started as a business arrangement would become the most passionate love of her life. The first snowflake of December hit the window of Hammond and Associates just as Emma Clark's computer screen went black. She stared at the dead monitor, coffee cup frozen halfway to her lips, and felt the familiar clutch of dread in her chest. Not today. Not 3 weeks before Christmas when she had 17 purchase orders to process, a board presentation to format, and exactly $43 in her checking account until Friday. "Please," she whispered to the machine, pressing the power button with the desperation of a prayer. Nothing. The office tower hummed around her with that peculiar silence of a Sunday evening when everyone else had gone home to their families, their warm apartments, their lives that didn't revolve around a flickering fluorescent bulb and a dying computer. Emma exhaled slowly, her breath visible in the cold. The heating had been spotty all week. Mr. Hammond kept saying he'd called someone to fix it, but the repair never seemed to happen. She pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders, the soft gray wool worn thin at the elbows from 2 years of constant use. Through the frosted glass of her small cubicle, she could see the warm glow of Alexander Hammond's office. The light spilled out like a beacon, and despite everything, the cold, the broken computer, the stack of past-due bills in her purse, Emma felt a small flutter of something she refused to name. He was still here. Of course he was. Alexander Hammond worked later than anyone, stayed longer than necessary, his tall frame bent over documents and contracts until the janitors started their rounds. Emma had watched him for 2 years now, had memorized the way he rolled up his shirt sleeves when he was concentrating, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead when he forgot to push it back, the way his gray eyes softened when he smiled, which wasn't often enough. She'd also memorized the frayed collar of his only good shirt, the scuffed leather of his dress shoes, the way he ate ramen noodles at his desk 3 days a week. Alexander Hammond was 32 years old, brilliant with numbers and business strategy, and absolutely, devastatingly broke. Just like her. Emma stood, smoothing down her black pencil skirt, the one she'd bought at a thrift store, and hemmed herself, and walked toward his office. Her heels, practical and worn, clicked softly against the linoleum that should have been replaced a decade ago. Hammond and Associates occupied the 14th floor of a building that had seen better days, with water stains on the ceiling tiles and windows that rattled when the wind blew hard. She knocked softly on the doorframe. Alexander looked up, and for just a moment his tired expression transformed. His eyes brightened, a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, and Emma's heart did that stupid thing where it forgot to beat properly. "Emma," his voice was deep, textured like aged whiskey, with a hint of gravel that suggested too little sleep and too much coffee. "You're still here." "So are you." She stepped inside, inhaling the scent of his cologne, something subtle and expensive that seemed at odds with everything else about him, bergamot and cedar and something darker she couldn't name. "My computer died. I need to use yours to finish the Morrison contract." Alexander immediately stood, gesturing to his desk. "Of course, I'll go make coffee." "You don't have to." "I want to." He moved past her, and for a fraction of a second, his hand brushed her lower back. Just a whisper of contact, professional and completely appropriate, but Emma felt it like a brand through the thin fabric of her blouse. Heat bloomed across her skin. She watched him go, noting the way his dark slacks hung a bit loose on his hips, the way his white shirt, that same worn shirt, pulled across his broad shoulders. Alexander Hammond had the body of someone who forgot to eat, who worked too hard and slept too little, but there was a strength in him, a coiled tension that made her wonder what it would be like if he ever truly relaxed. Emma shook her head, banishing the thought. He was her boss. More than that, he was a good man struggling to keep a failing business afloat, and she was his assistant who couldn't afford to lose this job. Whatever these feelings were, this constant awareness of him, this ache that lived beneath her ribs, they had no place in reality. She settled into his chair, still warm from his body, and opened the Morrison file. The office smelled like him here, stronger, more intoxicating. Her fingers trembled slightly as she began to type. 10 minutes later, Alexander returned with two mismatched mugs of coffee. He set hers down beside the keyboard, black with 2 sugars, exactly how she liked it, because he always remembered, and leaned against the desk, cradling his own cup. "You didn't have to come in today," he said quietly. "It's Sunday." "Neither did you." "It's my company. I don't have a choice." Emma looked up at him, at the shadows beneath his eyes, the tension in his jaw. "When was the last time you slept? When was the last time you did?" She smiled despite herself. Touché. They fell into comfortable silence, the kind that only came from hundreds of late nights like this one, from understanding without words. Outside, snow began to fall in earnest, coating the city in white. Christmas lights twinkled from neighboring buildings, red and green and gold, painting the darkness with hope. "Emma," Alexander's voice shifted, grew heavier. He set down his coffee and turned to face her fully. His expression was serious now, almost pained. "I need to talk to you about something." Her stomach dropped. Here it was, the conversation she'd been dreading. The company was folding. He was letting her go. She'd have to find another job in the worst hiring season of the year, and the rent was due in 2 weeks, and her mother's medication cost $300 a month, and... "I need you to marry me." Emma's brain stuttered to a complete halt. She must have misheard. The heating system was making that rattling noise again. She deconfused it with his words. "I'm sorry, what?" Alexander ran a hand through his hair, disheveling it further. He looked nervous, truly nervous in a way she'd never seen him. "I know how this sounds. I know it's insane. But I'm out of options, and you're the only person I trust enough to ask." Emma stood slowly, the chair rolling back. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Mr. Hammond." "Alex," he interrupted softly. "After 2 years, you can call me Alex." Alex, his name tasted strange on her tongue, intimate and forbidden. "You can't possibly be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything." He stepped closer, and suddenly the space between them felt charged, electric. Emma could see the amber flecks in his gray eyes, could smell the coffee on his breath mixed with that intoxicating cologne. "My uncle died 3 months ago. He left me everything. His estate, his fortune, his entire business empire. But there's a condition in the will." Emma's mind reeled. "Fortune, empire, what are you talking about?" Alexander's jaw tightened. "My uncle was Augustus Sterling." The name hit her like a physical blow. Augustus Sterling, the hotel magnate, the man who owned half of Manhattan's luxury real estate. The billionaire whose death had been front-page news, whose fortune was estimated at somewhere north of $15 billion. "That's not possible," Emma whispered. You work in a building with water stains, you eat ramen, your shirt has a frayed collar." Something flickered across Alexander's face, guilt maybe, or regret. "I know what it looks like. I've been playing a part for a very long time. My uncle and I had a complicated relationship. When I left his world, I wanted to prove I could make it on my own. This company, this office, it was supposed to be mine alone, but I failed." His voice cracked slightly on the last word. "And now he's dead, and there's this condition." Emma's legs felt weak. She sat down again, gripping the edge of the desk. "What condition?" "I have to be married by December 25th, or the entire fortune goes to a distant cousin who will immediately dismantle everything my uncle built and sell it off for parts. I have 3 weeks, Emma. 3 weeks to find someone, get married, and satisfy the terms of a will written by a man who never believed I could commit to anything." The desperation in his voice was real. Emma could hear it, could feel it radiating from him like heat. "Why me?" "Because you're kind, because you're honest, because in 2 years of working together you've never once lied to me or tried to manipulate me or wanted anything from me except fair pay for fair work." He knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level, and Emma's breath caught. "Because I trust you, and because I'm desperate enough to ask you to save me." "What's in it for me?" The question came out smaller than she intended. Alexander's expression softened. "Everything. Name your price. $1 million? 10 million. You could pay off your mother's medical bills, buy a house, never work again. I'll give you whatever you want, Emma. All I'm asking is that you marry me, stay married for 1 year. That's the minimum the will requires, and then we'll quietly divorce and you'll walk away set for life. 1 year, 12 months of being married to the man she'd been half in love with for 2 years. 12 months of pretending it was real when it could never be. 12 months of slowly dying inside. But also, her mother's medications. The surgery she needed but couldn't afford. The apartment building Emma had grown up in that was being sold to developers who would displace everyone. The community center where her little sister volunteered that was closing for lack of funds. $10 million could fix all of that, could fix everything. I need to think, Emma managed. I'll give you until morning. Alexander stood, and for just a moment his hand touched her cheek. The contact was feather-light, barely there, but it sent electricity racing down Emma's spine. I'm sorry to put this on you. You deserve better than a desperate proposal from a liar who's been pretending to be broke for 2 years. But I'm asking anyway. Please, Emma, marry me. He left her there, sitting in his chair, surrounded by his scent and the weight of an impossible choice. Outside, the snow fell harder, coating the city in silence. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat in her studio apartment, 400 square feet of space she shared with a radiator that clanged, a window that wouldn't quite close, and a photograph of her family from before her father left, and stared at the ceiling. Her phone lay beside her on the futon that served as both couch and bed. Alexander had given her his personal number. She could call him right now, could hear his voice, could tell him yes or no or maybe or this is the craziest thing anyone has ever asked me. But she didn't. Instead, she thought about her mother, who worked 2 jobs and still couldn't afford the physical therapy her doctor recommended. She thought about her sister, brilliant and 15, and facing a future without the scholarship program that was being cut from the budget. She thought about Mrs. Chen from apartment 2B, 83 years old with nowhere to go when the building sold in February. And she thought about Alexander, about the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't paying attention, about the coffee made exactly right, about the small kindnesses he performed without acknowledgement, about the man who worked himself to exhaustion trying to build something honest in a dishonest world. Could she marry him? Could she spend a year playing house with someone who made her heart race every time he entered a room? Could she survive walking away when it was over? At 6 a.m., as gray dawn light filtered through her window, Emma made her decision. She showered in the rust-stained bathtub, dried her hair with a towel that had seen better days, and put on her best dress. Navy blue, fitted with a V-neck that was professional but showed the barest hint of collarbone. She applied makeup with a careful hand. Mascara to darken her lashes, a touch of blush, lipstick in a shade called Brave. She felt anything but brave as she rode the subway to the office, clutching a travel mug of coffee she'd made at home because she couldn't afford the cafe prices. Monday morning commuters packed in around her, everyone focused on their phones, their thoughts, their own complicated lives. When Emma emerged onto her floor, Alexander was already there. Of course he was. His office light burned like a lighthouse beam, and through the glass she could see him pacing, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing with his free hand. He wore different clothes today, charcoal slacks, a crisp white shirt that actually fit properly, and a watch that caught the light with the unmistakable gleam of expensive metal. For the first time, Emma saw him as he really was, not her broke boss struggling to make payroll, Augustus Sterling's nephew, a billionaire hiding in plain sight. The revelation should have changed everything. Instead, it just made her sad. How lonely must he have been playing this part for so long? Alexander spotted her through the glass. He ended the call immediately and met her at her cubicle, his expression guarded, hopeful, terrified all at once. Emma. Yes, the word came out steady, sure. I'll marry you. The transformation on his face was immediate and total. Relief crashed over him like a wave, and for a moment he looked years younger. Thank you, God, Emma, thank you. I have conditions. Anything. She held up a hand, creating space between them even as her body screamed to move closer. First, my mother's medical bills, all of them going back 3 years, and she needs surgery on her knee. I want that covered. Done. Second, the apartment building on Delancey Street where I grew up. It's being sold to developers. I want you to buy it instead and let the tenants stay at rent-controlled prices." Alexander pulled out his phone, typing notes. Building name. The Riverside. It's not fancy, but it's home for 37 families. Consider it saved. What else? Emma swallowed hard, her courage wavering. Third, I want it to look real. If we're doing this, we do it properly. I won't be your secret wife hidden away in some apartment. We live together, we appear together, we convince everyone this is a real marriage. Something heated and dangerous flickered in Alexander's eyes. You want to live with me? That's what married people do. I have a penthouse on Park Avenue, 10,000 square feet. You'll have your own wing if you want privacy. 10,000 square feet. Emma's entire apartment could fit in a closet of a place like that. Fourth, when this is over, we end it cleanly. No drama, no mess. You pay what you promised and we go back to our separate lives. Agreed, but Alexander's voice had gone rough, textured with something Emma couldn't identify. Anything else? One more thing. She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze directly. While we're married, no other women. I won't be humiliated. Emma. Alexander stepped closer, invading her space in a way that made her pulse spike. His hand came up to her face, fingers brushing her jawline with devastating gentleness. I haven't looked at another woman since the day you walked into my office wearing a yellow dress and smelling like vanilla, and I'm not about to start now. The confession hung between them, heavy with implication. Emma's breath caught. That was 2 years ago. I know exactly how long it's been. His thumb traced the line of her cheekbone, and Emma's eyes fluttered shut despite herself. Every day, every hour, I know. Mr. Hammond. Alex. Alex, his name again, intimate on her tongue. This is just business. Right, business. But he didn't move away. His hand remained on her face, warm and steady and achingly tender. We should probably seal the deal then, make it official. How do we? He kissed her. Not the quick peck Emma might have expected from a business arrangement. Alexander kissed her like he'd been starving for it, like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. His mouth covered hers with firm, confident pressure, and Emma gasped against him, her hands coming up to grip his shirt. He tasted like coffee and mint, and something uniquely him. His lips moved against hers with skillful precision, coaxing her to respond, to open, to let him in. One hand cupped her face while the other slid to her lower back, pulling her closer until their bodies pressed together, and Emma could feel the hard planes of his chest against her softer curves. She should stop this, should pull away. This was supposed to be business, fake, temporary. But Alexander kissed her like it was real, and Emma found herself kissing him back with 2 years of pent-up longing. Her fingers threaded through his hair, softer than she'd imagined, and he made a low sound in the back of his throat that sent heat pooling in her belly. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma's lipstick was smudged across Alexander's mouth, and her legs felt like water. Sorry, he murmured, not sounding sorry at all. His thumb brushed across her lower lip, wiping away the evidence. Got carried away. We should, there are papers to sign. At my lawyer's office, this afternoon. Alexander's hand dropped from her face, but reluctantly, like it pained him to stop touching her. But first, I'm taking you shopping. Shopping? For a ring and clothes. If we're doing this properly, my wife needs to look the part. He caught her expression and quickly added, Not that there's anything wrong with how you look. You're beautiful. But the media will descend the moment we announce this, and I want you armed with armor that makes you feel invincible. My wife, the words sent a shiver down Emma's spine. When do we announce it? Tonight, there's a charity gala at the Sterling Hotel. Everyone who matters will be there. We'll arrive together engaged, and I'll introduce you as my fiancé. We'll marry on Christmas Eve. That gives us just enough time to satisfy the will's conditions. 4 days, Emma's head spun. That's fast. I know, but we don't have a choice. Alexander's expression softened. I'll make this as easy on you as possible, I promise. Okay, Emma exhaled slowly. Okay, let's do this. They left the office together, and for the first time in 2 years, Alexander didn't take the subway. Instead, A sleek black car waited at the curb, a Bentley with leather seats and a driver in a pressed uniform who nodded respectfully. "Mr. Hammond, Miss Clark." Emma slid into the back seat, sinking into buttersoft leather. The car smelled like luxury, like a world she didn't belong in. Alexander settled beside her, close enough that his thigh pressed against hers. "Cartier on 5th, he told the driver. As they glided through traffic, Emma watched the city slide past. Her city, familiar and strange all at once. She was still Emma Clark from the Riverside, still the girl who ate ramen and shopped at thrift stores. But she was also about to become Emma Hammond, wife of a billionaire, and nothing would ever be the same. Alexander's hand found hers in the space between them. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and strong and real. "Having second thoughts?" he asked quietly. "Terrified thoughts?" "Me too," he squeezed her hand, "but we'll figure it out together." Together, the words settled around Emma's heart like a promise she was afraid to believe. Cartier was everything Emma expected and nothing she was prepared for. The store gleamed with polished marble and soft lighting, with glass cases displaying jewelry that cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. A woman in a severe black suit greeted them at the door, her smile professional until she saw Alexander. Then it turned genuine. "Mr. Sterling, welcome back." Sterling, not Hammond. Emma's stomach flipped. "Margaret." Alexander's hand remained on Emma's lower back, possessive and protective. "This is my fiancée, Emma Clark. We need a ring." Margaret's eyes widened fractionally, the only crack in her professional demeanor, before she recovered. "Of course, right this way." They were ushered into a private room, all cream silk and champagne that appeared in crystal flutes without being asked for. Emma perched on the edge of a velvet sofa, acutely aware that her entire outfit probably cost less than the throw pillow beside her. "How did she know your real name?" Emma whispered as Margaret disappeared to fetch rings. Alexander settled beside her, one arm draped along the back of the sofa, fingers playing with the ends of her hair. "I've bought jewelry here before, for my mother for charity auctions. They know who I am." "But at the office?" "At the office, I'm Alexander Hammond, my mother's maiden name. In this world, I'm Alexander Sterling, Augustus's nephew and heir." His fingers trailed down her neck, leaving goosebumps in their wake. "You'll need to get used to both." Margaret returned with a tray of rings that sparkled like captured stars. Emma's breath caught. She'd never seen anything so beautiful. "May I?" Alexander took her left hand, his touch gentle, and Emma nodded, suddenly unable to speak. He tried ring after ring, sliding them onto her finger with focused concentration. Each one was stunning, princess cuts and emerald cuts, surrounded by halos of smaller diamonds that caught the light with every movement. But Alexander frowned at each one, dissatisfied. "Not right," he murmured, "not her." After the 7th ring, Margaret tilted her head thoughtfully. "May I suggest something? I have a piece in the back that just arrived from Paris. Unusual, not what most brides choose, but—" She looked at Emma assessingly. "I think it might be perfect." She disappeared again and returned with a single ring box, smaller than the others. When she opened it, Emma gasped. The ring was unlike anything she'd seen. A cushion-cut diamond sat at the center, maybe 3 carats, but it was the setting that made it extraordinary. The band was rose gold, twisted into an intricate design that resembled vines and flowers, with tiny diamonds scattered throughout like dewdrops. It was romantic and unique and absolutely breathtaking. "It's an antique design," Margaret explained. "Early 20th century, but recreated with a modern stone. The rose gold is unusual. Most people prefer white or yellow, but I thought." "It's perfect." Alexander's voice had gone rough. He lifted the ring from its velvet bed and slid it onto Emma's finger. It fit like it had been made for her. The rose gold warmed against her skin, and the diamond caught the light, sending rainbows dancing across the walls. Emma stared at her hand, this symbol of a marriage that wasn't real, and felt tears prick her eyes. "Emma," Alexander's hand cupped her face, tilting it up to meet his concerned gaze. "You hate it. We'll find something else." "No," she covered his hand with hers, the ring glinting between them. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I'm just overwhelmed." His expression softened into something that looked dangerously close to tenderness. "You deserve beautiful things. You deserve everything." He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers, and Emma's eyes fluttered closed. "I know this is fake. I know it's just business, but for what it's worth, I want to give you the world." The confession wrapped around Emma's heart and squeezed. She wanted to believe him, wanted to pretend this was real, that the ring meant forever, that the way he looked at her wasn't just gratitude for saving him from a greedy cousin and a dead uncle's manipulations. "We'll take it," Alexander told Margaret without looking away from Emma. "And matching wedding bands, rose gold for both of us." After Cartier came the boutiques. Bergdorf Goodman, Saks, smaller ateliers where designers greeted Alexander by name and presented gowns like offerings to royalty. Emma stood in fitting rooms while women with tape measures and pins transformed her. "For tonight," a stylist named Dominique declared, draping Emma in a floor-length gown of emerald green silk, "it will make your eyes impossible to ignore." Emma stared at her reflection. The dress hugged her curves before flowing to the ground in elegant waves. The neckline dipped low, showing the curve of her breasts without being vulgar. With her hair swept up and the right jewelry, she'd look like she belonged at a billionaire's charity gala. She'd look like someone else entirely. "Let me see." Alexander's voice came from beyond the curtain. Dominique swept it open before Emma could protest. Alexander stood there in the boutique's sitting area, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms, and the expression on his face when he saw Emma made her heart stop. He looked at her like she was art, like she was something precious and rare that he wanted to protect and possess in equal measure. His eyes darkened, traveling from her face down her body and back up, leaving heat in their wake. "Perfect," he said roughly. "We'll take it." "You haven't even asked the price." "I don't care what it costs." Alexander moved closer, and Emma found herself pinned between him and the mirror. His hands settled on her waist, possessive, and she could feel the heat of his body through the thin silk. "You look like a queen." "I look like I'm playing dress-up." "You look," he murmured, lips brushing her ear, "like mine." A shiver ran through Emma's entire body. In the mirror, she could see them together, her in the gorgeous gown, him tall and powerful behind her, his hands on her body and his mouth so close to her skin. They looked like a couple. They looked real. "This isn't real," she whispered, reminding herself as much as him. "I know," but Alexander's arms tightened around her waist. "Doesn't stop me from wishing it was." Before Emma could process that confession, he stepped back, putting professional distance between them once more. The loss of his warmth felt like abandonment. They bought the green dress, and a dozen others, cocktail dresses and daywear and casual clothes that cost more than Emma's monthly rent. Alexander insisted on everything, waving away her protests, loading boxes into the car until the trunk overflowed. "You're being ridiculous," Emma told him as they left the fifth boutique. "I'm being practical. You're moving into my penthouse tonight. You'll need clothes." His hand found the small of her back again, that now familiar touch that made her pulse spike. "Let me spoil you, Emma. It's the least I can do." "This is too much." "It's not nearly enough." At a jewelry store on Madison Avenue, he bought her earrings to match the ring, rose gold drops with diamonds that would brush her shoulders. At a salon, he insisted she get her hair done, her nails, a facial that left her skin glowing. By the time they emerged, late afternoon sun was slanting golden through the buildings, and Emma felt like Cinderella being prepared for the ball. Except she wasn't actually going to get her happily ever after. This was temporary, fake, a business arrangement that ended in divorce and a paycheck large enough to solve all her problems. So why did her chest ache every time Alexander looked at her like she mattered? "One more stop," he said as they climbed back into the Bentley. To the driver, the penthouse. Emma's nerves kicked into high gear as they drove through Manhattan's glittering streets. Park Avenue. The kind of address people dreamed about. The Bentley pulled up to a building that looked like it belonged in a movie, all Art Deco elegance and doormen in uniforms, with a lobby visible through glass doors that dripped with chandeliers. A man in a tailored suit greeted them at the entrance. "Mr. Sterling, welcome home." Home, Emma followed Alexander through a lobby that looked like a palace, all marble and gold and mirrors that reflected their images into infinity. A private elevator required a key to access. When the doors closed, sealing them in together, the space suddenly felt too small. They rode up in silence, tension crackling between them. Emma watched the numbers climb, 10, 20, 30, until finally the elevator slowed at the 42nd floor. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. Emma stepped out and stopped breathing. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire space, showcasing a view of Manhattan that belonged on postcards. The city spread out below them in every direction, rivers glinting like silver ribbons, buildings rising like monuments to ambition. Inside, the penthouse was all clean lines and sophisticated taste, modern furniture in warm neutrals, artwork that Emma recognized from museums, a grand piano gleaming black in one corner. Alexander stood behind her close enough that she could feel his breath on her neck. "Say something." "This is where you live." Her voice came out small, overwhelmed. "This is where we live, as of tonight." His hands settled on her shoulders and Emma leaned back into his warmth without thinking. "Your wing is to the east, bedroom, bathroom, sitting room, completely private. My wing is west, shared spaces in between. You can have as much distance as you need." But Emma didn't want distance. That was the problem. She wanted to turn around, press herself against him, and pretend this engagement was real. Wanted to explore what that kiss this morning had promised. Wanted to stop fighting the attraction that had been building for 2 years and finally surrender to it. "How long until the gala?" she asked instead. Alexander checked his watch, definitely a Patek Philippe, probably worth more than her mother's house. 4 hours. You should rest, get ready. I'll have your things brought up from your apartment tomorrow." "I can do that myself." "Emma," he turned her to face him, hands on her shoulders, expression serious. "You're not that girl anymore, the one who has to do everything herself, who can't accept help. You're about to become Emma Sterling, and that means you have resources. Use them. Let me take care of you." The offer was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. Emma had been taking care of herself since she was 15, since her father left and her mother crumbled and someone had to be strong. Letting go of that control felt like stepping off a cliff. "Okay," she whispered, "I'll try." "Good." Alexander's thumb brushed across her lower lip, a gesture that was becoming dangerously familiar. "Now go, rest. Tonight we face the wolves." Emma retreated to her wing in a penthouse on Park Avenue, and sank onto a bed that felt like sleeping on clouds. Through the windows, the city glittered as twilight descended, Christmas lights beginning to twinkle like urban stars. She lifted her left hand, watching the diamond on her engagement ring catch the fading light. In a few hours, she'd walk into a ballroom on Alexander's arm and step into a life she never imagined. In 4 days, she'd marry him. In 1 year, she'd walk away. All she had to do was survive it with her heart intact. Emma closed her eyes and prayed for strength she wasn't sure she possessed. The dress transformed her. Emma stood in front of the floor-length mirror in her new bedroom, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The emerald silk clung to every curve, the low neckline revealing creamy skin, the high slits showing a dangerous length of leg. The stylist had arranged her dark hair in an elegant updo, with a few tendrils escaping to frame her face. The diamond earrings Alexander bought caught the light with every movement, and the engagement ring gleamed on her finger like a promise. She looked expensive, she looked powerful, she looked like someone who belonged at a billionaire's side. "You look like you're about to face a firing squad," a voice said from the doorway. Emma turned to find Alexander leaning against the frame, and her breath caught in her throat. He wore a tuxedo that had clearly been tailored for his exact proportions. Black jacket fitting perfectly across his broad shoulders, white shirt crisp against his tanned throat, bow tie elegant and precise. His dark hair was swept back, and when he looked at her, the heat in his gray eyes made her skin burn. "I feel like I am," Emma admitted. "Facing a firing squad, I mean." Alexander pushed off the doorframe and crossed to her, moving with the predatory grace of someone comfortable in his own body. He stopped inches away, close enough that Emma could smell his cologne, that same bergamot and cedar that haunted her dreams now. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he said quietly. "Every person in that ballroom tonight will know it." "You're just saying that?" "I'm saying it because it's true." His hand came up to cup her face, and Emma's eyes fluttered shut. "And because I need you to believe it, the press will be vicious. The society women will be jealous. My uncle's business associates will question everything about you. But you're stronger than all of them, Emma. You've survived things they can't imagine. Remember that." Emma opened her eyes, meeting his intense gaze. "What did I survive?" "Being kind in a cruel world, that takes more strength than people realize." His thumb stroked her cheekbone with devastating tenderness. "Ready?" "No." "Perfect, that makes two of us." Alexander offered his arm, and Emma took it, feeling the hard muscle beneath the fine fabric. "Let's go convince the world we're madly in love." The lie should have stung. Instead, it felt dangerously close to truth. The Sterling Hotel ballroom glittered like something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers dripped from soaring ceilings, casting rainbow light across marble floors. Christmas decorations adorned every surface, gold ribbons and white roses and evergreen boughs that scented the air with winter. Women in designer gowns mingled with men in tuxedos, everyone beautiful and rich and powerful. Emma's hand tightened on Alexander's arm as they entered. Every head turned. Conversations stuttered to a halt. The whispers started immediately. "Is that Alexander Sterling?" "Who's the woman?" "My gods, look at that ring." Alexander seemed unbothered by the attention. He guided Emma through the crowd with easy confidence, stopping occasionally to greet people, his hand never leaving the small of her back. Each introduction was the same. "Emma Clark, my fiancée." The word sent shockwaves through the room. People's eyes widened. Women's faces went tight with jealousy or speculation. Men assessed Emma with gazes that ranged from appreciative to calculating. An older woman in diamonds that probably cost more than Emma's childhood home approached, her smile sharp as a knife. "Alexander, darling, we heard rumors you'd return to the fold, but engaged, how delightfully unexpected." "Margaret," Alexander's voice cooled by several degrees. "Emma, this is Margaret Ashford. She runs the charity board my uncle supported." "How nice to meet you." Emma extended her hand, and Margaret's eyes flicked down to the engagement ring before meeting Emma's gaze again. "Charming, tell me, my dear, what do you do?" The question was a trap designed to expose Emma as an outsider, someone who didn't belong. But Emma had been underestimated her entire life. She knew how to handle bullies. "I'm Alexander's executive assistant," she said smoothly. "Or I was. Now I'm focusing on the transition into my new role as his wife." "How modern," Margaret's tone suggested it was anything but, "and where did you two meet?" "At my office," Alexander interjected, his arm sliding possessively around Emma's waist. "She walked in wearing a yellow dress, and I knew my life would never be the same." The sincerity in his voice made several women sigh audibly. Emma's cheeks heated. He was playing the besotted fiancé perfectly, except the way he looked at her didn't feel like acting. "A whirlwind romance, then." Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How lovely. I'm sure we'll all be reading about it in the papers tomorrow." She drifted away, and Emma exhaled slowly. That was terrifying. "You handled her beautifully." Alexander's hand traced slow circles on her lower back, and Emma had to fight to keep her breathing steady. "She's a vulture who thrives on gossip, but she'll spread the word we're legitimate, which is what we need." They made the rounds, stopping at cluster after cluster of New York's elite. Each conversation was a performance, each introduction a test. But Alexander never left her side, never let anyone diminish her, always touched her with casual possessiveness. A hand on her waist, fingers intertwined with hers, his jacket draped over her shoulders when she shivered in the air conditioning. It felt real. God help her, it felt so real. 2 hours in, Emma escaped to the ladies' room, desperate for a moment to breathe. She stood at the marble sink, staring at her reflection, flushed cheeks, bright eyes, lips slightly parted from Alexander's earlier kiss when a photographer appeared. "Play along," he'd whispered before capturing her mouth in a kiss that had been all for the cameras, and absolutely devastating to her equilibrium. The bathroom door opened and 3 women entered, their voices carrying. "Can you believe Alexander Sterling is engaged?" To his secretary, it's like something from a romance novel. Clearly she trapped him, probably got pregnant. Emma froze in the stall, heart pounding. "Don't be ridiculous. They've been together for 2 years. I have a friend who works in his building. She said everyone knew he was obsessed with her." Still, she's nobody, from nowhere. What could she possibly offer someone like him? Maybe he loves her. Laughter, sharp and cruel. Men like Alexander Sterling don't marry for love. They marry for connections, for business, for appearances. Give it a year before he trades her in for someone more suitable. The women left and Emma remained frozen, their words echoing in her ears. They weren't wrong. This was temporary, a business arrangement. In 1 year, Alexander would divorce her and move on, probably to someone exactly like the women who just mocked her, beautiful, connected, born into his world. The thought shouldn't hurt as much as it did. Emma straightened her shoulders, fixed her lipstick, and returned to the ballroom. Alexander found her immediately, as if he'd been tracking her the entire time she was gone. Emma, his hand cupped her elbow, concern darkening his eyes. "You're pale, what happened?" "Nothing, just overwhelmed." He studied her face, clearly not believing her, but before he could press, music swelled from the orchestra. Couples began moving to the dance floor. "Dance with me," Alexander said, and it wasn't a question. He led her onto the floor, one hand settling at her waist, the other taking her hand. Emma's breath caught as he pulled her close, closer than was strictly proper, close enough that their bodies brushed with each step. "I can't really dance," she whispered. "Then let me lead." His voice was low, intimate, meant only for her ears. "Trust me, Emma." She did. God help her, she trusted him completely. Emma let Alexander guide her through the waltz, their bodies moving in perfect synchronicity. His hand on her waist burned through the silk of her dress. His gray eyes never left hers, dark with something that looked dangerously like hunger. Around them, other couples danced, but Emma forgot they existed. The ballroom narrowed to just the 2 of them, his hands on her body, their hearts beating in time, the space between them charged with enough electricity to light the city. "Emma," Alexander's voice had gone rough, "you're killing me in this dress." "Is that a bad thing?" "It's the best kind of torture." His hand slid lower on her back, fingers splaying possessively. "Every man in this room wants you. I can feel them watching, and all I want to do is throw you over my shoulder and carry you out of here so no one else can look at you." Heat flooded Emma's body. "That's very caveman of you." "I know, I'm trying to be civilized." He leaned down, lips brushing her ear. "But Emma, I've wanted you for 2 years, dreamed about you, imagined what you'd feel like in my arms, and now you're wearing my ring and this goddamn dress and I'm supposed to keep my hands to myself for a year." Emma's knees went weak. "This is fake, remember?" "Fake," Alexander laughed, but it sounded pained. "Right, fake." But his hand tightened on her waist, pulling her so close that Emma could feel every hard plane of his body against her softer curves. This close, she could see the pulse hammering at his throat, could feel the restraint vibrating through his frame. "Alex," his name came out breathy, desperate. "People are watching." "Let them watch. Let them see that you're mine." "I'm not." "For the next year you are." His eyes burned into hers. "That ring on your finger says you're mine, Emma, and I take care of what's mine." The possessiveness should have alarmed her. Instead, it sent liquid heat pooling low in her belly. Emma pressed closer, drawn to him like gravity, like inevitability. "This is a mistake," she whispered. "Probably." Alexander's hand slid up her back to cup her neck, thumb tracing the rapid pulse at her throat. "But I'm going to make it anyway." He kissed her, right there on the dance floor in front of 500 of New York's most powerful people, Alexander kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. His mouth moved over hers with devastating skill, coaxing her to open, to let him in, to surrender to the heat building between them. Emma kissed him back. Forgot where they were, forgot this was fake, forgot everything except the taste of him and the feel of his body against hers and the way her entire world narrowed to this moment. This man, this impossible attraction she could no longer deny. When they broke apart, gasping, applause erupted around them. Emma blinked, dazed, suddenly remembering they had an audience. Alexander's arms remained around her, protective and possessive, as he turned to acknowledge the crowd with a slight smile. "Thank you all for celebrating with us tonight," he said, voice carrying across the ballroom. "Emma and I are getting married on Christmas Eve, and we hope you'll join us in toasting to new beginnings." More applause, champagne appeared. Someone made a toast, but Emma barely heard any of it over the hammering of her heart. Alexander's hand found hers, squeezing gently. When she looked up at him, his expression had softened into something that looked dangerously close to tenderness. "Okay," he asked quietly. Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. Nothing about this was okay. She was falling for her fake fiancé, falling hard and fast with no safety net to catch her. And from the way Alexander looked at her, like she was precious and rare and absolutely his, she suspected she wasn't falling alone. They left the gala near midnight, slipping away while conversations still buzzed with speculation about the engagement. The Bentley waited at the curb, and Emma sank into the leather seats with relief, her feet aching from hours in heels. Alexander settled beside her, immediately pulling her against his side. Emma went willingly, too tired to fight the comfort of his warmth. "You were perfect tonight," he murmured into her hair. "Better than perfect." "I was terrified." "No one could tell." His hand stroked her arm in soothing circles. "You faced down society dragons like you were born to it." Emma closed her eyes, letting herself sink into the fantasy for just a moment. What would it be like if this were real? If Alexander actually loved her instead of needing her for a business transaction? If that kiss on the dance floor meant something beyond performance? "What are you thinking?" Alexander's voice rumbled against her ear. "That this is the strangest day of my life. Strange good or strange bad? I don't know yet." Emma lifted her head to look at him. In the dim light of the car, his features were shadowed, mysterious. "Alex, what happens after Christmas Eve, after we're married?" His expression shifted, grew serious. "We live together, appear together at necessary events, convince everyone the marriage is real for 1 year, as stipulated in the will. And then you're free." But something flickered in his eyes, regret, maybe, or longing. "You'll have your money, your family will be taken care of, you can go anywhere, do anything. The world will be open to you." "Without you," Emma thought but didn't say. "What will you do?" "Run my uncle's empire, try to make something good out of all that money and power." He cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. "Try to forget what it felt like to have you." The confession hung between them, heavy and honest. Emma's heart clenched. "Alex, I know, business arrangement, fake, I'm not supposed to feel anything." His laugh was bitter. "But Emma, I've been half in love with you since you walked into my office. This past week has just made it worse." Emma's breath stopped. "You can't mean that." "Why not? Because I'm a billionaire? Because you're my assistant? Those things don't matter to me, Emma. What matters is that you're kind and brilliant and brave. What matters is that you make me want to be better than I am." Tears pricked Emma's eyes. "This isn't real." "It could be." Alexander leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. "We're getting married anyway. What if we tried? What if we made it real?" "For how long? Until you get bored? Until you remember I'm from the Riverside and you're from Park Avenue?" Emma pulled back, needing distance. "Those women at the gala were right. I don't belong in your world. Those women are jealous harpies who told the truth." Emma's voice cracked. "I'm nobody, Alex. You could have anyone. Why would you choose me?" "Because I don't want anyone else." His hands gripped her shoulders, intense and desperate. "I want the woman who works late nights because she gives a damn about doing things right. I want the woman who spent her last $20 buying coffee for a homeless man outside our building. I want the woman who cried watching a documentary about penguins. That was one time. I want you, Emma Clark. Alexander's voice dropped to a whisper. Not for a year, not for the will, just you, for as long as you'll have me. Emma stared at him, heart hammering, desperately wanting to believe him. But fear held her back. Fear of being hurt, fear of not being enough, fear of losing herself in a fantasy that would eventually end. I can't, she whispered. I'm sorry, Alex, I can't risk it. Pain flashed across his face before he masked it. Right, of course. He released her, putting physical distance between them that felt like a chasm. I apologize, that was inappropriate. The car pulled up to the penthouse. They rode the elevator in painful silence, the air thick with everything unsaid. When the doors opened, Emma fled to her wing without looking back. She didn't sleep. Emma lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Alexander's words. I've been half in love with you since you walked into my office. Was it possible? Could this actually be real? No, Emma pushed the thought away. He was grateful, that was all. Grateful and attracted to her because she was convenient. Once they were married, once the novelty wore off, he'd realize his mistake. He'd start looking at other women, women who fit his world, who knew which fork to use and how to discuss art and politics. Women who weren't terrified of losing everything. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Emma sat up, pulling her robe tighter. Yes. The door opened slightly. Alexander stood in the hallway, still in his tuxedo pants and shirt, bow tie undone and hanging loose around his neck. He looked rumpled and exhausted and heartbreakingly beautiful. Can't sleep either, he asked quietly. Emma shook her head. They stared at each other across the space of the room. I'm sorry, Alexander said finally. I shouldn't have said those things in the car. You made your boundaries clear and I overstepped. It won't happen again. Alex. I mean it, Emma. This is a business arrangement. I'll honor that. You have my word. He started to close the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I meant every word, but I understand if you don't believe me. Good night. He left before Emma could respond. She sat in the darkness, her heart fracturing into pieces. Because the terrible truth was, she believed him, every word, and she was absolutely terrified by how much she wanted to believe in the possibility of them. The next 3 days blurred together in a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Planners descended on the penthouse with fabric swatches and flower arrangements. A wedding dress appeared, vintage lace with a sweetheart neckline that made Emma look like she'd stepped out of a 1920s photograph. Alexander stayed busy with lawyers and business meetings, keeping his word about maintaining distance. They were polite strangers sharing a space, nothing more. It was exactly what Emma had asked for. It felt like dying by inches. On December 23rd, Emma's mother and sister arrived at the penthouse. Her mother, Jane Clark, stood in the foyer looking overwhelmed and suspicious in equal measure. Emma, sweetheart, Jane pulled her into a fierce hug. What's going on? You're getting married in 2 days to your boss and suddenly you live in a penthouse. This is insane. I know, Mom. I'm sorry I couldn't explain earlier. Is he forcing you? Her younger sister, Lily, interrupted, eyes narrowed. Because if he is, we'll go to the police. I don't care how rich he is. No, Emma's chest warmed at their protectiveness. He's not forcing me. It's complicated, but it's what I want. Jane studied her daughter's face. Do you love him? The question hung in the air. Emma opened her mouth to lie, to say it was just practical, just a solution to both their problems. Yes, the truth escaped before she could stop it. I love him. Does he love you? He says he does. But you don't believe him, Jane said softly, always too perceptive. Emma's eyes filled with tears. How can I? Mom, you should see the women he knows. Beautiful, sophisticated women who were born into this world. I'm just the girl from the riverside who got lucky. Emma Clark, Jane gripped her daughter's shoulders. You listen to me. You are smart and kind and strong as steel. You've kept this family together since you were 15 years old. Any man would be lucky to have you, billionaire or not. She paused, then added gently, But baby, if you don't love him, if this is just about money or obligation, you don't have to go through with it. I do love him, Emma whispered. That's the problem. Then why is that a problem? Because what if I'm not enough? What if he realizes he made a mistake? Lily, who'd been listening quietly, spoke up. What if you are enough? What if this is your actual fairy tale and you're too scared to believe it? Emma looked at her baby sister, 16 now, brilliant and brave, and realized Lily was braver than her. Because Lily believed in possibilities, in happy endings, in taking risks. Maybe it was time Emma did the same. Christmas Eve dawned clear and cold, the city covered in fresh snow that made everything look clean and new. Emma woke early, nerves and anticipation warring in her chest. Today she married Alexander Sterling. Hair and makeup artists arrived at dawn, transforming her into someone who belonged in bridal magazines. The vintage lace dress fit perfectly, hugging her curves before falling in elegant waves. Her mother's pearl necklace, the only thing left from Jane's own wedding, gleamed at her throat. When Emma looked in the mirror, she saw a bride. Not a fake one entering a business arrangement. A real bride, ready to promise forever to the man she loved. Now she just had to convince him that she meant it. The ceremony was small, held in the penthouse with only family and a handful of close friends. Windows showcased the snowy city, and white roses filled every available surface. A string quartet played softly. And at the end of the aisle stood Alexander. He wore a tailored tuxedo that probably cost more than a car, his dark hair perfect, his expression serious as he watched Emma approach. But when their eyes met, something shifted. His professional mask cracked, and Emma saw raw emotion underneath, hope and fear and desperate longing. She reached him, and he took her hands, and the officiant began speaking words about love and commitment and forever. Emma, Alexander's voice shook slightly as he recited his vows. I promise to honor you, to protect you, to stand beside you in all things. You've made me believe in possibilities I thought were lost. You've made me want to be better. You are my unexpected miracle, and I will spend my life trying to deserve you. Emma's vision blurred with tears. When it was her turn, she threw away the safe, carefully written vows she'd prepared. Alex, she squeezed his hands, holding his gaze. I was so afraid of this, afraid of you, of what you make me feel, of not being enough, but I'm done being afraid. I love you. I've loved you for 2 years, and I'll love you for every day after this if you'll let me. This might have started as business, but it doesn't end that way. Not for me. Never for me. Alexander's expression cracked completely. Emma. I love you, she repeated louder now, needing him to hear it to believe it. This is real. We're real. The officiant barely finished the ceremony before Alexander pulled Emma into his arms and kissed her. Not the performance kiss from the gala. A real kiss, desperate and relieved and full of promises. I love you, he breathed against her lips. God, Emma, I love you so much. Then we're doing this for real? Emma asked, needing to hear him say it. For real, forever. No divorce, no walking away, just us. Alexander cupped her face, thumbs wiping away her tears. You're stuck with me, Mrs. Sterling. I can live with that. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and somewhere behind them, Emma heard Lily whisper, see, fairy tale. Maybe it was. Or maybe it was something better. 2 people who'd been brave enough to take a chance on each other, to choose love even when it was terrifying, to build something real from a foundation of pretense. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the city in white. Inside the penthouse, surrounded by family and the man she loved, Emma finally understood what it meant to be home. Not a place, not a building. Just Alex's arms around her and his heart beating against hers, and the promise of all their tomorrows spread out before them like gifts waiting to be opened. Merry Christmas, wife, Alexander murmured. Merry Christmas, husband. And they lived, quite literally, happily ever after.